So the article that I chose has to do with the following current issues. It deals with critical thinking skills for our PT and PTA students, as well as technology and education. So essentially what this article says, or the purpose of their project, was to develop student self-awareness of their psychomotor skills, supported by specific criterion-based feedback from their teacher. And in order to achieve the goal of having the student be able to have better self-awareness skills, what they needed the students to do was to practice the clinical skills in a low-stress setting, to use technology to record their intervention, then to receive visual and verbal feedback that would enable the student to improve their self-evaluation and reflection skills, and then finally to provide feedback to the lecturer on the effectiveness of the teaching and the material covered in lectures and practical classes. So basically, what this study did is they took 61 students who were in their third year of PT school, and at the end of the semester, the PT students typically have a practical examination in which they're tested in the classroom setting, their psychomotor skills with kind of like a patient scenario type of, they're given a patient scenario, they have to come up with the treatment intervention and then do the treatment intervention, and they're graded on it by their teacher at the end of the semester. So in this study, the students who chose to participate were given a pre-experience survey in which they shared with the researchers their thoughts on what could possibly be the positive aspects and the negative aspects of being recorded with a video camera during a simulated clinical task. Then they actually did a simulated clinical task. So the students got into groups of 3, and within 1 hour they rotated every 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes one student was the patient, one student was the clinician, and one student operated the video camera in order to record what was going on. This activity was done prior to the actual graded practical examination at the end of the semester. Then what happened is the students did a post-experience survey. So before they were even given feedback from their course instructor, they were asked to reflect upon their perception of the experience, its effect on their confidence in regards to are they able to accurately self-assess themselves and their performance against a set criteria such as a grading rubric. And then they were asked if they wanted to receive feedback from the instructor and how did they want to receive that feedback. Did they want to receive feedback in that group of 3 students? Did they want to receive it one-on-one? Or did they not want to receive feedback at all? The 4th step was to actually receive feedback. So those students who wanted feedback received their feedback in whatever method it was that was their preference. And then last but not least was feedback evaluation. So the students were asked to reflect upon the correlation between the feedback given to them by their teachers and their perception of their own performance within that fake practical examination. So this was helpful to the course instructor because this feedback was useful for them to determine whether or not their teaching is effective for what their goals are for their students. Let's see, then the research article goes into a little bit about data analysis, and it has a lot of examples of things that students were saying were some of the pros and cons. Essentially, what I thought was really interesting about this article, one of the negatives that I thought might have been the amount of time that it would take not only to videotape 20 minutes per student, but then for an instructor to have to sit down, even in groups of 3, that would be an hour per set of 3 students. My program has 24 students in it, so that would be minimum of 7 hours of feedback in preparation for a real practical. That aside from getting however many video cameras are needed into the classroom and getting the technology available and being able to use it was probably one of the other negatives that I had seen right off the bat. One of the reasons that I thought this was a good article for me personally to utilize for this assignment is because Our program is starting to incorporate some self-assessment tools. The APTA has come out with the values-based behaviors for the PTA self-assessment tool. We're going to incorporate that 2 times within our program, once when students kind of in the beginning of the program and then once at the end of the program, so that we can see how the students are assessing themselves. But this values-based behaviors is not a psychomotor test. It's a test of values-based behavior, so it's more a test of a student's affective behaviors as opposed to psychomotor behaviors. But I like the inclusion of self-assessment. The other reason that I kind of was drawn to this article is because last semester in the fall of 2011, our students took their practical exams at the end of the semester, and their results were poor. The results were really poor, so much so that I probably lost 2 weeks of sleep over it, thinking about where I went wrong and what I could have improved on and what our labs were missing. So some of the things that we already do in our program is, before the actual practical occurs at the end of the semester, we do have a fake practical a couple of weeks ahead of time. Instead of being videotaped, the students are in groups of 3. One's the patient, one's the clinician, and the other student, the third student, is utilizing our actual grading rubric to assess their classmate. This ensures that the assessment process is transparent and the students really understand what it is that they're being assessed on, because if a student utilizes a grading rubric to grade someone else, they have pretty much a true understanding of what is going to be used to grade them when they do their practical. And then those students rotate through, so everyone gets an opportunity to be the clinician, be the patient, and be the proctor who's grading the examination. So while I think in the past it was beneficial for the students to evaluate each other and to get feedback from their classmates, what this article incorporates that I have not incorporated yet is self-assessment. It's one thing to assess your classmate because you're using the rubric, and it's another to really take that time out to assess yourself, A, immediately after a fake practical, but B, even to watch a video of yourself and to assess yourself before your clinical instructor gives you feedback, so that we can see if the students can kind of find that self-error detection and pick up their errors on their own. What else am I thinking? So what I did after my 2 weeks of losing sleep after the practical exams were really awful, and I can admit that to you, is that I got together with 2 of the other professors and I created 3 videos. One of the videos was I was pretending to be the clinician in all videos, the student clinician. And one of the videos I ran through a practical case scenario and I did awful. I would have failed had I really been a student. Then one of them was kind of on the fence. There were some good things, there were some bad things. And then the third video was the ideal intervention that a student would provide. And so what I did after practicals was to show the students these 3 videos and had them analyze me, so that they had an opportunity to discuss, to think about on their own, and to assess someone else, to see the mistakes they were making on the video. But again, that's analyzing someone else. It's not necessarily analyzing yourself. So I think that the idea of this article and using video to assess yourself is beneficial but timely, so I would have to consider how I would actually do that in a feasible fashion. And I also like the idea of, I was kind of blindsided at the end of the fall semester, because that was kind of like a slap in the face to me, like, wow, Holly, your labs were not as effective as you wanted them to be, because the students were not able to put the pieces together in the way that I wanted them to. So I think doing this, even halfway through the semester or a third of the way through the semester, is nice feedback for the instructor to see whether or not their labs are being effective or if their teaching style needs to improve and they're not maybe creating the critical thinking environments that they want to be creating. So that was my little spiel on this article, the use of technology to enhance student self-evaluation and the value of feedback on teaching. I hope you enjoy, and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you.